Hello and welcome everybody to this, the last Middle Earth readings of 2022. I don't know whether we're going to have a busy session or a quiet session today. It's in the hands of the gods. I know that our lovely Suzanne is not with us today. Hello Suzanne. And that we do not have anybody who has dropped off any runes, which is the first time in ages, which I'm assuming means you all had a lovely Christmas day and a lovely Boxing Day. So I want to invite you into a moment of quiet and stillness at this time. We are at this point, we're still in the half month of Yera, the rune of the year. Its midpoint is at Yule, and we are going to be moving very soon into Iwaz at the end of this week. But we also have Odin's Chariot in Perthro, the rune of wyrd, the rune of, I sometimes think about it almost like the waves of karma. I know that's the wrong tradition, but the waves of wyrd coming up, and they bring with them the new but also the old. It's like this treasure hoard of new possibilities and old things that we need to look at. And we're in a particularly powerful period of time for Perthro because Hela's Chariot is in Perthro at the moment, and it will be for 9 years. It has been since 2020, which is when I first started doing this runic astrology work sort of in this format, sharing it and really moving into it. So it's very powerful for me, and Odin is inviting us into this place of quiet and stillness with his eye that he leaves under Mimir's brun, under the well of Mimir, to access, we believe, second sight, other knowledge. So he has his throne at the very top of the world tree, looking out over the world tree, the high shelf. And then he has his eye down at the very bottom of the world tree, bringing together different forms of wisdom, different forms of knowledge. And then Frigg's Chariot is going to join Odin's Chariot in Perthro tomorrow. And she brings that even more, that sense of silence. She's known as a very silent goddess. She is a goddess of prophecy and seership, but she very rarely shares everything that she sees, because she knows that sometimes when we see the future, it can do more harm than good. She has had her own experience of that with the loss of her son Balder, and this double bind that she's got herself into, of not knowing whether the actions that she took in order to prevent his death were in some way actually responsible for his death or not. This idea that when we spend a lot of time looking forwards and saying, oh, what's going to happen, and getting into this space of anxiety and trying to control, that can be a worse place than working with what you already know and working with the energies of the present. And certainly when I work with Middle Earth readings, what we tend to do is we work within the energies of the present, within the present day, the present week. We don't try and go too far ahead in terms of what we're looking at. So I'd like you to imagine Gununga Gap, the great void, this empty void in which all things came into being, and we had ice on one side of the void and fire on the other in Niflheim and Muspelheim, and eventually they come together and everything grows from the centre, and we end up with the world tree at the very centre of Gununga Gap. And we can see that as being a tree with all the worlds on, or in the context of runic astrology we can see it as the planets moving around and part of the tree, and that the planets and the tree and everything, you, I, we are all vibrating. We all have a frequency at which we're vibrating, and this is the basis upon which runic astrology and the birth runes work, that as the planets are moving, they are moving through the runic wheel, which is overlaid across all of Gununga Gap when Odin undertook his rite of initiation, if you want to call it that, when he brought the runes into being, into these worlds. That then this great circle was created of the runes, and the planets move through them, and as they vibrate and each of the runes vibrate, they create this unique vibratory pattern. And when we are in the energy of Perthro, we could see Gununga Gap as becoming almost like an echo chamber, that we have the sound of the present. That is what we're working in most of the time. But as what's happened in the past moves outwards, out across to the very edges of Gununga Gap, it bounces back off the edges of Gununga Gap and it comes back in. And those are the echoes of the past that always influence the song of the present. And so when Perthro is bringing its full power in, it is drawing us into a much closer union between the present and the past, and perhaps their interplay. And there, when we start to understand those patterns and we say, oh, well, this thing that's happening now is being influenced by what was happening before, and these two frequencies are now becoming louder, for good or for ill, then we can start to see the way that the pattern is going to move forwards into the future. And so we get a glimpse into the future at the same time through reading that interplay between the past and the present. And what Perthro invites us into, with its now 3 planets, currently in Perthro, Hela's Chariot, Odin's Chariot, and as of tomorrow, Frigg's Chariot, invite us into the silence where we're able to listen for that. It's a time to think about what's present for you in the moment. I was doing some work on that this morning for myself, literally breathing in, saying, what does my body say about this? Oh, I want to do this today. What does my body say about that? And feeling into the wisdom of the body. And stretching outwards and saying, what's present for me that is echoing through the chamber of 2022 that is coming to my attention, that I either need to bring forward into 2023 or I need to do some work around. So this place of silence is a place of reflection, a place of knowing. And as you're doing this, we have the Perthro rune, but we also have on the 29th, we are moving into, Suna's Chariot is moving into Iwaz, which is the rune of the world tree. So you have the void, great void of Gununga Gap. You have the world tree in the centre. You've got the well down at the bottom, which is also very Perthro energy, drawing up all of that energy from the depths of the void and perhaps even beyond it. And then we have the world tree in the centre. And what the world tree in the centre does for us is it reminds us how resilient we are. And that even if the echoes can feel quite overwhelming, the job that we have made for ourselves, particularly humanity at this point, that we have made for ourselves, the conditions that we have created for ourselves can feel quite overwhelming, whether we're thinking about that individually or collectively. Iwaz says, I will endure. It says, I am life. I am the keeper of life and I am strong. And so when we root into that energy of Adrazel and into that energy of Iwaz, we are able to listen to the echo chamber of Gununga Gap and Perthro playing through it and bringing all of these things to the surface. But we're also able to say, I might not know the answers now, but I will in time. Breathing into that Iwaz energy, drawing that up into your center, up into the spine in particular. Iwaz connects with the energy of the spine. And it connects with the energy of earth and sky as well. It connects us to the wisdom of sky, as I was mentioning, with Odin being on the top of the world tree, and with the deep knowing of earth as well, bearing in mind that he placed his eye deep, deep beneath the earth, in fact. And so it connects us in, and it says, I have access to so much wisdom. What I need to do at this point is to listen to what Perthro is telling me and not to try and fix or control. Perthro resists when we attempt to control it. It's not a good idea to try and control Perthro energy. We have to ride it and work with it. One of the things that I'm really present to at the moment, thinking about Hela's Chariot in Perthro, is this sort of 9-year cycle, is these narratives of pretending we're in charge and that we have all of the answers, and that if we don't, if we make up a story and believe the story, that then the stuff that's happening over here isn't really happening. And that's happening across the world. We can see it on every political stage. We can see it in so many conversations online. This creation of a story that either makes us feel better or makes us feel powerful, often at the expense of others, but gives us the illusion of safety when we're finding it difficult to deal with the uncertainty that Perthro brings. And Iwaz offers us a different path. It says, instead of creating this story, this defensive story, it's not going to help. We can feel into the depths of our wisdom and look for the answers in the collective, look for the answers in the unfolding of time, work in different ways to bring through something new and more powerful and more true, let's say. This is one of the reasons that I believe that the Northern tradition is becoming more present to so many people at the moment, because it does bring that resilience of spirit and the connection to the lands of the North, of the European lands and ancestors, who are there in the same way as all of the other ancestral traditions, the ancient traditions of the earth and of the human family. That maybe the answers are found when all of those voices come together. And so for those of us who feel very strongly called to listen to the voice of the northern ancestors and of the northern tradition, it's then what do we do with that? How do we channel that deep Iwaz energy and bring that forward? So I wanted to leave you with that thought to think about the year past as we move into 2023 as well. And now let's have a look at your runes. Lovely to see everybody. Hello Carolyn, you have got a Thala for this week, this brings very much the energy of inheritance and legacy to play. So what I've just discussed there, Carolyn, is a really powerful space for the Athala to sit in, because it recognizes that we are inheriting the land we live on, the stories, the mythic stories, the conditioned stories, the stories that serve us, the stories that don't. We have inherited those. And yet Athala in the future, if you think about we're receiving all of those echoes through Athala also reminds us that the actions that we take upon the world tree create the legacy that we leave in turn. So it is that sense of honouring the past and recognising it as part of us and saying, yes, this is the house that I live in that was built by other hands, and this is the land that I live on that has been tended by other hands, and this is what I have inherited, and what am I then going to do with that? What do I want to pass on? So it's just, it actually works very well with the Iwaz rune in particular, but it says it's a bit like the Iwaz rune is the energy of the flame within, and it's preserving it and it's holding it, and the Thala is saying, what action can you then move into to become part of that legacy? And if you could choose, if you could look at everything right now and say, well, I can't change everything, but if I could choose what impact I was going to have through my being, not what I have to do or anything like that, just literally, what if I could choose, what would I do? What would you, the poem, I can't remember the poetess, I want to say, who made the poem, that what will you do with your one precious life, is the question that the Athala rune asks. And then Erica, you have Hargalaz, and again, I'm really feeling each of these runes as they come forward as being almost taking the centre stage, with the Iwaz rune holding them, and the Perthro rune becoming the great void, Ginunga gap, and the Hargalaz energy is rippling out. And again, it's looking at the past and the present, and it is saying there is a moment here to recognise the presence of Hargalaz in your life, both as the hailstorms, the hail seed that has come and disrupted and caused change, that has swept away the old and has been an invitation to the new. And I can really feel within that the really crystalline energy of Hargalaz. It's playing on what the Athala rune a little bit here, because the Hargalaz rune is said not only to contain the destructive seed of nature that sweeps away the old so that the new may be reborn, but it also contains within it the pattern of that creation. It's a more primal rune in many ways than Athala. So Athala, because it comes at the very end of the rune row, can talk to us about the interweaving of nature and humanity and story and body, and all of the things come together within Athala. Hargalaz is much more about nature and the primal energies in many ways, but they are related in that they do both talk about the pattern of what is to come. And Hargalaz does, to a certain extent, recognizes that there are some things that are within our control that we can work with in the Athala rune, and there's some things that are outside of our control that we would be better off working with So it's that reading of the pattern of what's going to come that's important here. So there's a real recognition of the role of the hailstorm that both comes externally to us and that we are part of, that we can be change makers in our own rights. And I'm feeling for you, Erica, it's like the not just one hail seed. You know how we can say, you know, there's one thing and that's the disruptive thing, and if I got rid of that, everything else would be better. It's actually looking at the beauty of the hailstorm in its entirety, and that we, by contributing our piece, we do the one thing that we need to do. We be the change that we need to be. We weather the storms that we need to weather. That then there is a trust that others are doing the same, that each hail seed is part of the whole, part of the bigger piece. And I think that's partially the wisdom that Odin and Frigg want to bring to each of us, if we are feeling that sense of there is so much that needs to be done in the world. And it's recognizing that a single hailstone would never have wreaked, you know, the destruction or the renewal that the full storm achieves. And so it's talking about the momentum that we can have. So it's trusting your own individual impact, trusting that your impact, you might not be able to see it, what's changing, but it's when they all come together that the real power of Hagalaz to, in a much quicker way than perhaps we recognise as human beings, that there is so much that can be done and can be achieved and that can be changed to reset where we are. And I'm thinking with that very much about climate and society now, that this is what the Hagalaz rune is talking about. It's saying, yes, that you are a little bit off kilter right now. So this is a diagonal Hagalaz, the way that it comes there. And so there is going to need to be some work, and it's going to be a little bit challenging, but just do your bit, is what it's saying there. And Karen, you have Wunyo. So Wunyo comes just before Hagalaz in the rune row. It is the rune of belonging and of family and of kin and joy. Just sort of breathe into that for a minute. After the Hagalaz energy can feel very big and a little bit, it can make us a little bit nervous, particularly if we're not feeling that I'm in a place of resilience at this point. That's why it comes after Wunyo. It says that Wunyo, we need that experience of safety, of family, of oneness, of unity, of being part of something bigger than ourselves before we're able to go out into the world. So Wunyo finishes, here's our Wunyo rune, Wunyo finishes the first 8. The first 8 means family, but it also happens to be conveniently that there are 8 runes in each of the families. So this is the 8th rune of the Elder Futhark. Hagalaz is the 9th. The nine is always a very magical number, the rebirthing of worlds, but 8 comes before it, that foundations. And as I feel the Wunyo rune in the centre, there's this I can really feel the song of the Wunyo rune just sort of echoing backwards and forwards, and it's saying, yes, you know, do, when the way seems hard and difficult, make sure that you are really stepping into the energy of joy and what you need and the little things there that come through. I can see, Troy, that you've got Wunyo as well, and no, you're not too late. So so Karen and Troy, these are the Wunyo rune is winding round here. It's small pleasures, but it's recognizing again the way in which it's almost like the hail seed in a different way. It's sort of saying those small points of light create the stars. You know, they each, if it was just one point of light in the sky, you know, that can be very, very beautiful. But the wonder that we get when we look at all of the stars and all of the planets, and when we feel them working all together, that's again when you get powerful change. And if you were to weave together what we've had already with Athala and Hagalaz in this space of Iwaz and Perthro, again, there is a sense of saying sometimes the legacy that we want to leave is one about impact and change and being part of something really big and contributing in a really meaningful way. And sometimes it's about those really small contributions that are valued by the people at home, the people who care about us and don't care if we make massive changes in the world because they just love us as we are. And it's recognizing that that is an incredibly powerful place to stand as well. There's a question that I often ask my my clients when they come and work with me one-to-one, and we look at what is it that you need in order to take your hero's journey in the world? What are those things that you need? And everyone needs to be at somebody's hearth. You know, it's very, very difficult, except in Tales of the Hero Leader, which I believe is a paradigm of leadership which is outgrown its usefulness at this point. That one person can take the weight of the world on their shoulders and that they don't need anyone to support them is not something that you find within the Northern tradition, where the gods work in concert with each other pretty much at all times. It's very rare for a god to go out alone, for example, or to not have backup, or to have magical tools or weapons or whatever it is that they need. So they're, you know, each of our acts has a whole group of people who are behind us. And the Runyo rune is saying, weave with me, make sure that you are replenished and replete, and that you have the nourishment of your soul, because that is what makes you strong. That is what makes you strong. I think that's for you, Carolyn, and for you, for you, Karen, and for you, Troy, there. Jean, you said that you picked a Thala as well. I love it when we get these runes that sort of come in little groups here. So we've got our Thala rune again. The only thing I would pick up with on the Thala rune there is, given that we've had the Runyo rune coming in as well. And the Thala rune is, again, it has a real echo of family and tribe and belonging. And it reminds us that every one of us inherits a legacy of large world-changing acts, and of tiny, tiny, tiny small acts that all came together to create the person that is you, standing in this place, in this moment, in this time. And so every small act that we undertake creates a ripple effect outwards into the world. So again, you might want to think about small things that you can do. I think about just small things like recycling, saying hello to your neighbour, going to bed that little bit earlier, creating habits is what comes to mind here with the Athala, and creating habits or rituals, you might call them. That's what I like to think about them, as our rituals, that we repeat them over and over and over and over again, and that's how we make lasting change in the world. So Athala might be inviting a little bit of looking at that there in terms of legacy there, Jean. So we have done Runyo there for you, Troy. Lisa, you have Iwas, as does Felicity. So there you go. They're all coming in pairs, aren't they, today? So I've talked a little bit about Iwas already. So you are going to you're going to love when we move into Suna's Chariot in a couple of days' time. Suna's Chariot and Iwas. So what's coming through to me for Iwas for us today is two things, actually. Maybe listen to both of them, Lisa and Felicity, and it might be that one of them resonates more strongly, or it might be that both of them for you. So one of them is, I often talk about the energy of the staff with the Iwas rune. It's that, because we've talked about the support that we might need, sometimes it is about emotional support or intellectual support. Sometimes it's actually about physical support. And the Iwas rune, in the metaphor of the staff, is what's coming through to me. And my staff is actually winking at me as we speak, and like sniggering away. Thank you. It's talking about actually things like buildings. And normally this comes up with Hagalaz, but actually Iwas is coming out. So when Hagalaz comes up, sometimes it can actually mean just go and check that your drains are working okay, or go and clean your gutters or something like that. It's literally, what have you done to prepare for the storm? But it's those two energies coupled together. It's the resilience of the Iwas rune that you bring into your hearth that then allows the Hagalaz rune to do its work of clearing and releasing, and the strong stays in place. So it's just having a look at things that you might want to strengthen physically, and I would say that relates in particular to hearth and home. So if there any time that you have this week to do a little bit of clearing, I'm looking outside, for example, and we've got I've got a very big rose and jasmine bush that has pulled itself away from the wall, and it needs to be cut down and reattached. And it's those sorts of things that are saying energetically this is important to then call in the energy of Iwaz, the energy of that strength, and to have that present within your home, so that the Iwaz energy of the tree in the centre is then anchored within your home. So you can think about those types of actions as being anchoring actions, drawing in Iwaz. And the other piece for Iwaz is one of the kennings for it, the names, the poetic names for it, is Fire's Keeper. And wyrd is known as Fire's Keeper. There's a number of reasons why people think that might be the case. So partially, it doesn't catch fire very easy. It's quite slow to catch fire, but once it has, it burns with a very hot heat. So it can be Fire's Keeper in the sense of the intensity of the flame. There are also suggestions that wyrd would have been used to keep the embers of the fire overnight, to keep them hot, because it would have held them within, and but not burst into flames itself. I've never experimented that with myself. I just know that that's one of the explanations that is given. I think if you were going to do that, you probably want to do it outside before inside, to see whether it was true or not. But it's this idea of the sap of also comes into that. The sap moves into the heart of the tree again when the Hagalaz rune comes. So it's looking at protection, and here it's looking at protection not just for hearth and home, but also for the body. So anything, again, little rituals and habits that you can bring in that are going to sustain your body more strongly. And again, I think this might be for everybody actually as we move into, Iwaz wants to chat because it's moving in a couple of days' time. We've got 2 weeks with the pure energy of Iwaz coming through with the sun. Is looking at, again, your daily rituals that support your body. So you might want to be looking at nutrition, you might want to be looking at sleep patterns, you might want to be looking at exercise, not going crazy. Think about this in terms of, what do I do to preserve and conserve, to build up my energy stores inside and to hold them strong within me. So that's what you're looking at. You're not looking at, I want to become like a dynamo of energy. You want to have that the sap nourished inside you, so that when you need to, you can draw on it. So we're looking at meditative practices, we're looking at physical practices, physical exercise, we're looking at breath work, sleep, or whatever it is that this actually really nourishes me and nourishes my body. Have a look at those in the coming next couple of weeks. Trish, you have Lagus, the rune of water. It's quite a different energy to Iwaz. So Iwaz has that strong, resilient, enduring, the world happens around Iwaz, which is why it's a great complement to the Hagalaz rune, because they can play together nicely. Iwaz rune will say, I'm going to preserve this, and the Hagalaz says, I will destroy this, and then everything will blossom and flourish again and move into the Bacano energy of spring once that process has happened. Lagus rune is different. The Lagus rune is very different to Iwaz in that it flows around. Think about the energy of water flowing around and going everywhere that it's not really wanted. It's curious, it's going to move here, move there. Thank you, Arius. It was Mary Olive with the poem. Thank you, much appreciated. And so there is a sense of adaptability. It's more in keeping with the Perthro energy that I was mentioning. So the Iwaz rune, when we think about it as the ash tree, so the world tree is sometimes seen as the yew, sometimes seen as the ash. One of the things with the ash tree is that its bark looks like these, like the banks of rivers, if you have a look at it. And my understanding is that it's designed that way so that water will flow off it, so that it doesn't rot. So it's a very water resistant tree, in the way that yew tree is fire's keeper, and the ash tree is more associated with water. So when found near water, because it can manage that, because the water runs off its bark. And so with the Lagus rune, there is this interplay between the Iwaz energy of that which will stay and it will just shrug off, and the Lagus rune is like, that's okay, I don't mind, it's going wherever it needs to go, with the Perthro energy coming and bringing this echoing, playful, fun energy. I can almost hear that bubbling song of water and sort of like a little bit of elven laughter going on there for you, Trish, as well. There is a real sense of recognizing that sometimes resilience is not about bedding in. Like the Iwaz rune is like, I'm going to stand my ground. Lagus rune is like, I'm just going to move over here. You can go that way and I'll just move back when you've gone. Hey. So it's looking at that. It's saying, where can I shift? Where can I adapt? Where can I, if you've got friends or family around, you're seeing it, it's a bit like saying, yeah, if I'm water, I'm just going to let whatever it is, I'm going to let it run off, a bit like the ashtray, I'm going to let it run off and pass through me, and then I'm just going to shuffle over here and have a play. It's a real playful energy of the combination between Lagus and Perthro. And it's recognizing that when we master that, you might think about that as being the sort of external energy of Lagus, of the way in which we manage ourselves. We manage our relationship with the external world in a Lagus way through shifting, moving, changing. Then we are able to, at a deeper level, connect more deeply to the roots. We were talking about the Iwa's roots, and to the waters down further below. So we have a deeper spiritual connection when we are managing our energy in the outside world. Then our energy naturally, remember that Lagus is that flow of water, naturally starts to pull deeper down and connect us to deeper wisdom and greater resilience again as well. So focus on the idea of this sort of playful laughter energy and saying, oh, how can I shift? How can I move? How can I cleanse? And then just trust that that will connect you at a deeper level into the Lagus power as a gateway into other worlds, into other forms of wisdom, into healing as well is possible. It feels a little bit like a gateway into the year for me there for you, Trish, as well, with the Lagus rune. Chen, lovely to see you. You have got Kinaz again. Kinaz loves you, doesn't it, Chen? I remember you having that before, this sort of creative energy. So we've had with Lagus the energy of water, of healing and adaptability. With Kinaz we have the energy of fire. Lagus and Kinaz are often used in Wiccan circles or by hedge witches as well, if they want to bring a little bit of northern magician spirit into their circle making. They often use Lagus as the symbol for water and Kinaz as the symbol for fire. It's quite nice. Here we go. Here's the Kinaz rune. This is the rune of fire. So you can imagine that Iwaz is fire's keeper. And it's this fire, this Kinaz fire burning. Often Kinaz is associated with pine wood, which also burns hot, but it burns very bright, and pine torches are, particularly effective. And that's really what I'm feeling for this one for you, Chen, is less the energy of the forge and the creator, and more the enlightenment of following the torch. It's not even, I wanted to say it was curiosity, but I'm not sure if it's even curiosity. It feels like intellectual pursuit, and there is a maturity in the way that's moving forward. Maybe it's because I'm reading Harry Potter at the moment. I'm imagining the difference between, if you've read the Harry Potter books, if Harry and Ron are, they're there with their torches and they're going in and they're reckless, aren't they? They're reckless. Oh, I'm going to do this and that. They're typical Gryffindors, Then you have Hermione, who will come and say, no, let's do this in a more sensible way. For those of you who watch Harry Potter, I always think to myself, she could have been in Ravenclaw. Who knows how the Sorting Hat chose her. But she brings she balances their energies of move forward, be really quick, with this more analytical approach. And that's what I'm feeling here, is that Kinaz energy that is quite, it's clever. The word cunning. The words cunning and clever come with the K of the Kinaz rune, and knowledge as well with the K at the beginning of the, all come from this Kinaz. You can see the curly K or the kicking K of Kinaz there within the Kinaz rune. They're all come into play. So it's I think it's almost that recognition of that as a power to claim in its own right, and perhaps a sense in which the Kinaz rune contains within it has two energies within it, and you can see it's got these two prongs, and one is the outgoing, creative, hot, new ideas, new inspiration type of energy, and the other is the experience and the expertise and the knowledge and the planning. And it's the way in which these two things come together that causes impact, in the same way that I was saying, Harry and Ron, they normally get themselves in trouble if mine isn't there as well. No, it's that way in which we can recognise in ourselves that creative endeavour requires us to bring all of these different facets, that if we just bring the one, that the forge energy, the creator energy. We can often burn out too quickly. We don't complete projects. We have lots of unfinished projects there, and it's this other side of the Keenaz rune is really important for helping us to stay on track and plan and use our cunning a little bit more. So celebrating cunning there for you, Chen, standing in the center of the void and almost claiming that as well for yourself in that moment, and saying, how does that feel in my body? Where does that that cooler energy of light rather than heat come? So the heat brings you forward, the light tells you which direction to go in. Where do I feel that in my body? And start to feel into that at this point will stand you in good stead for the year to come. Candy says, sorry I'm late, hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas. Your rune is Rado, Candy. So the rune of the road, the rune of rhythm, the rune of ritual. I've been talking a little bit about establishing strong rituals, the habits that we create, bringing a little bit of mindfulness to them and bringing that Rado energy, making these routines into sacred, making them sacred, and saying, well, do I need to do this anymore, or do I want to bring this in instead? Here we've got our Rado rune. And I'm also thinking with this about Rado. Often to me is the rune that I go to for actually thinking about runic astrology, about the sort of astrological path of the planets and the way that they move, and the chariots moving along the roads. And we talk about the planets as being chariots, or as if they are. It's difficult to tell. If for those of you who have seen the what's it called? No, it's gone. It's not going to come. It's very annoying for me. The chariot, this sort of golden chariot. No, it's not going to come. Just let it pass. With Suna, it's the horse. It's the horse, and then this golden orb of the sun that is said to be depicting Suna's chariot. And we know that Mani has a chariot as well, and the gods are said to have chariots. And what we don't know is sometimes the wheel was depicted as being like the orb, but sometimes the orb of the planet was held within the chariot as well. So we've got this, the wheel energy and this the orb energy too. So the chariots hold and contain the energies of the planets and of the sun and of the moon, and they pull them across the sky, and because of that they are on the road. And so I often think about this when I think about Odin set the sun and the moon and the stars on their courses to help, apparently, to help us to tell the time. And there is a sense of recognizing in our lives that we have our daily routines, and then we have the bigger movement that we can see as we watch the path of the planets in the sky, and recognize this much bigger rhythm that we are moving through all of the time. And it's the interplay between those two things, which is why when we do runic astrology, we're just taking that little bit of a bigger picture that we're saying, oh, what's present here up in the space of the stars that Odin placed there to help us to tell the time, bearing in mind that they were not talking about looking at a watch at that point. It wasn't that type of time. To me, it's about knowing when to make a decision, when to change, when to stay still and in stillness, when to move forward, and when to adapt and shift our routines a little bit. That there's always this interplay between the smaller actions that we take and the bigger actions of the planets going through. And I think that's what the Rado rune is calling you into, Candice. It's recognizing that these two things are very interrelated, that the movement of the stars and the movements of each of us through our daily lives are echoes and supports of each other. It's almost like the microcosm and the macrocosm. It's really feeling into that at the moment, and almost looking out at the stars and saying, oh, hello, and doing your little bit of the recap. This is what I did today as you watch the chariot pass overhead. Carolyn says, great thoughts for intro. Thank you for sharing. Good, I'm glad. Hi, David Keith. Good morning. No problem with being late. That's absolutely fine. Do share a rune if you have one. Carolyn says, and thank you for your words. Connected to the Athala rune. That makes so much sense. Being in the middle of my time off, I was enjoying nature a lot. wondering how my path goes on and what to consciously do with that time. So reflecting on this year is a very good I'm glad that's good for you. And Eric says, thank you for the insight and reading and being part of the bigger new crystalline pattern. Yes, indeed. There we go. So you have Isa, David. So let's have a look at Isa. We haven't had Isa yet. Isa brings us back into the Iwaz rune a little bit here, because it's this rune of stillness. I want to say it's actually inviting meditation that goes beyond words in many ways. If you remember, I talked about at the very beginning about, or if you can watch the recording if you want to as well, because I think you said that you're a bit late, so you might not have heard this bit. So I was talking about Ginnungagap, the Great Void, and the way in which the Great Void was empty, and then we don't know when exactly ice and fire emerged, but they're the first two realms that are spoken of. The realm of ice, or Niflheim, it actually means mist home, and fire, Muspelheim. And then they merge and they form, and they presumably become water, and then different elements form, yeast and venom and iron and all of these wonderful elements, as well as ice and fire. And then the tree comes within the center. And the Isa rune is a different representation to the Iwaz rune. So the Iwaz rune is the living tree. The Isa rune is the energy of ice. It brings us back into this very primal, raw form of sort of saying, well, all form ultimately stemmed from this element of ice. Fire brought the movement and the motion and the change and the flow. And Isa calls us back into stillness, into this place of simplification, I almost want to say, where you have a circle, the void, and a line, the Isa rune, in the center, and everything else is just a ramification of these two primal energies of a circle and a line, which we see in so many other traditions as well. The idea of it's often thought of as being like the balance between the masculine and the feminine often comes in there. This very primal, simple space before the complexity is what you're being called back into there. And I would suggest that it is about meditations that don't draw us out, that draw us closer in. So you could choose, I would tend to choose Isa itself as a mantra word, to just be in the stillness and to find what is there for you in that place of stillness, in the center, almost like an excursion, into this place of simplicity and this place of primal stillness. Recognizing that it's not that we necessarily find an object or something on these types of quests that we then bring back. It's not like a shamanic journey where you go out and then you bring something back. It's almost that through that process of meditation and of moving inwards, we change, we become the treasure that then returns, that when we return we come back different, and we come back, for me, I feel as if it's almost like that resonating with that power of Isa, which is the power of stillness, but it's also the power of the foundations of form, which, if you remember right, we've looked at the Athala rune, we've looked at the Hagalaz rune, we've looked at all of the things that potentially might need to change out there in the world, and that they can feel a bit overwhelming. And sometimes that Kinaz energy, that fire energy that I was talking to Chen about, and that need to balance all of these different bits, can literally burn us out and overwhelm us, and that we then move back into the place of Isa for stillness and replenishment and nourishment. And when we return from that place, we return different. So give that a try. You might want to try the Isa meditations that I have, so you can go to www.maginrose.com, find the Explore the Runes pages, and you can have a go with I've got 2 Isa meditations on the Isa rune page there that you can try. Wonderful. Let me see. Karen says, thanks, that was very relevant. I always shoulder everything myself and don't ask for help. So yes, that's excellent. Well, it's a great resolution to have to change that way. Felicity says, thank you. Candy says, that makes sense. My routines need a tweak right now. Good, that's wonderful. Michelle says, good morning. Good morning, Michelle. And David says, big hearts, which is great. So that brings us to the end of Middle Earth readings for, this is the last of them for this year. For those of you who don't know, I am doing a masterclass on runic astrology, which includes an opening ceremony for 2023 next Monday evening, 8 p.m. London time. It's on Zoom, and if you buy your ticket, you can come in person, or you will have access to the recording as well. And that ticket includes your membership for Suna's Star Wheel for the year, for the full year. So it's £45, and you get your masterclass and our little ceremony, and you will also get the Suna Star Wheel package for the full year, which includes a lot of resources that support reflections, intention setting, my planetary guide. It includes the birth runes self-calculation toolkit if you want to calculate your birth runes yourself, and it includes you get an email once a month from me at the beginning of the month. So January's has already gone out for people who are members of the Star Wheel already, but it is in the archive, so if you are a new member, you can find all of your January planetary movements. And then there's a little audio. It's normally about 30 to 40 minutes long, where I talk you through the month ahead. We do a little soul care meditation as well, a meditation that fits with the energies of the month coming up. So that is available for you to purchase if you would like to come to the masterclass, or if you would like to have your Suna's Star Wheel for the year ahead. Then that is the nice New Year present for yourself, or for somebody else if you think that they would like it too. I will pop the link in the comments for you now, and so I hope to see some of you I hope to see some of you on Monday next week for our first Middle Earth readings of the year, but also for coming to the masterclass in the evening. Lovely to see you. David says, I love how the runes just know. They just do, don't they? They just do. And I think that that's a very lovely place to finish. So thank you, David.